What is up, beautiful people? This is Pope with the Green Dream Stream for podcast numero uno. As I've been putting together this podcast and getting ready and setting everything up for a long time now, almost 15-20 minutes since I decided I was going to do a podcast. And here we are, podcast time. And I definitely do not know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to try to get warmed up into this because I think it might be fun. So let's see, what are the topics for podcast number one? I want to talk about solutions-based thinking. Why do I want to talk about that? Well, because in that sense, I get to talk about myself a little bit, which is what I feel might be a little bit appropriate now. Hold on this after our first minute now. Hold on for technical checks here. Microphone check. I said microphone check. I said microphone check, 1 2 1 2. Well, guess what, my people? Pope loves you. All right. I just wanted to check and see if it would record while the screen was off because I don't want this bright light flashing. The thing about this particular podcast, it's going to be coming to you from the evenings in the jungle. So every once in a while, when I do find a time to shut my big trap, you're going to be able to hear the echoes of crickets and grasshoppers of the evenings of here in jungles of Costa Rica, as a huge cane toad just stumbles on past me. And I am mostly in the dark, but we have a almost full moon out tonight, so it's pretty light, no flashlights needed. And we're going to just talk about solutions-based thinking because that's what we're all about over here on this permaculture farm, which we are developing. And what would be some good-for-nothing from Boston be doing on a permaculture farm in the middle of Costa Rica, building a bamboo cabin? What would be the point of that? Well, I think you might notice, the divisiveness of the media as it is today. I think that it's more obvious now than it's ever been how separated and divisive and two-sided and bilateral everything is. And what it does is it generally puts our society and our culture, especially with technology, into a situation where we're all just sitting there judging the doings, comings, and goings of other people. And there's enough people in this world to make you really, really believe that you're doing all right just because you're not doing the stupid things that they're doing. And it's almost like you can live a really good life just by sitting back and not making the mistakes of other people. And the technology world allows us to do this. But what it also does, it takes a lot of people out of the driver's seat of getting anything actually done, making any changes in the world. So we have a problems-based society, and I wish we were a solutions-based society. So in my wishing of doing that, the last thing I thought I could ever really do is just sit around and talk to people on a podcast, years and years ago when I first started my journey over 12 years ago, and tell everybody how to think. So I just got off my butt and I came and I'm doing it. And I have been doing it for quite a while now. And what do I think I'm doing? Who knows? We all tell ourselves these stories in our heads of what we think we're doing in order to champion the concept of the story of the ego of our lives. But my story is the one where we basically use abundance-based solutions to unsustainable problems that we have in the world. So what are some of the problems we have in the world? Well, it's debatable, right? We can talk about issues, things that need to be regulated, but then there's this other aspect of society that isn't sustainable for a different reason. So it's probably not sustainable to put fluoride in our water, right? That needs to be regulated away, right? But that's gonna different than what it really means to, essentially like be dependent, have our entire agricultural food source dependent on monocultures, for example. And permaculture is essentially one of those solutions to the problem of agricultural monocultures. And the problem with those is probably, some percentage of 80 or 90% of our food comes from monocultures, and monocultures are really not sustainable because they kill the ground underneath. You're basically selling your children's nutrients in the dirt, down the road for an instant buck these days. And it really doesn't make any sense. They have to use fertilizers and chemicals, and so you have to feed the nutrients into the soil. You have to protect it from the ecosystem around it, so it's not natural in any way. And that never really made a lot of sense to me. So I started studying this stuff. Actually started with a study about hydrogen as a use for electricity, in a paper called Keeping the Energy Debate Clean. And talked about all the different power sources out there. And I started getting interested in hydrogen because it's really, really clean. That conversation starts getting into the other conversations of how we can make recyclable plastics. And then you start to really learn about how permaculture works. And all of a sudden, all of these different solutions start weaving themselves into a plan that formulated into what became my life. And I came down to Costa Rica in 2012 to work with bamboo. I started with bamboo because, you start with bamboo because it's just like one of those video games that you play where it's like, Civilization. I don't know if you ever played one of the Civ games. But Civilization, you always start when you're building out your town before you start taking over the world. You always start with a mine and a mill. Right? You got to get your natural materials, your raw natural materials. So that made sense to me. We have this problem with, carbon, which is an entire other debate whether or not, climate change and carbon is an issue. And I just think the issue with environment is they need to stop polluting, but they never have that debate. But point being, it's really not sustainable to cut down the world's forests, in order to, print off faxes and paper, and the ways that we waste paper and everything like that. So I ended up finding out about bamboo. It's the fastest growing hardwood in the world. There are over 1 billion homes already right now in the world built out of bamboo. I learned about bamboo, started studying how to make a treatment system for bamboo, learned how it could be done in as fast as 30 minutes to an hour. And it cures and dries within 6 to 8 weeks, and it takes only 5 years to grow a full cane of bamboo. Now, the more you learn about bamboo, it's just absolutely one of the plants that could actually save our entire civilization from this issues of our deforestation. And so to me, it was a solution that was just too obvious not to take up. I mean, here's the thing about bamboo. When it grows, in 5 years, you've got yourself something you can build a house with, and the house will last 40 years. That means I can grow you 8 more houses in the amount of time it takes just to use up one of them. So this is a carbon positive solution. And the amount of carbon sequestration you get from this is fantastic. Now, what's awesome and amazing about it, think about every other hardwood on the planet. When you cut down the tree, you kill the tree. With bamboo, you're not killing the plant at all. You're just cutting down one of its canes. It's actually a grass. I call it a dinosaur grass. And because that's literally what it is. It takes, 95 to 99 years to come to seed. And then when it comes to seed, it dies out. But it's 99 years. It's longer than our lifetime just for one of those canes. So it's absolutely incredible as a building material. And I started working with it. And why did I do that? Because I could sit there and, protest the timber companies till I'm blue in the face. But, solutions-based thinking and thinking about solutions as a way to solve your problems is really a way from pivoting away from your needs and your, requirements to live that are run by certain conglomerates. So if we can get away from needing the big boys and the industrial complexes of the world, and we just pivot away and we don't need them anymore, then we have nothing to protest. We don't have to fight them. We just need to find solutions. Now, we're lucky that our U.S. patent system is the way it is because all the solutions are actually already there. And all we need to do is reinvent them ourselves right on the land, because the big companies and the rich people have bought all the patents. But what they haven't done is bought my ability to come here and build a grocery system, build a plastic pyrolysis reactor, which is a non-polluting technique for creating what could be 100% recyclable plastic. And then, of course, there's what I want to build more than anything else is the solar thermal hydrogen electric. And you can't tell me that as an option is not absolutely three things that we could do in this world that are solutions oriented and could actually help, change this world for the better. Now, I studied economics and finance for quite a while. I worked in the industry for 5 years. Was licensed, and I left in about 2006 because I could see what was coming. In 2008, the industry was dragging and lagging. The actual downturn started happening in 2007, if you'll remember right. And so, understanding finance the way that I do and did, it helped me understand that there's really not anything that we're going to do to affect the powers that be other than shifting away from them, right? And as the internet has rolled out over this 25 to 30 year time, so has the age of information at our fingertips. And it seems that, the further we get down that road, the more they want to clamp down on that information, trap that information, shun people away from the concept of utilizing that information. I call that the Appleification of every fun, the iPhoneification of the world. And there's nothing wrong with iPhones, but what they do is they make your life so simple you stop thinking for yourself on how to do things. And that saps away the creativity. When the tools only let you go left, right, up, and down, then nobody in the world is going diagonally anymore. And that's what I call kind of the dumbing down of our creativity. The less flexible your tools are, the less creativity you can exhaust on them. And so those are things I'm trying to avoid. And in avoiding on all of those things, kind of trying to stay on tune and on track with the solutions-based thinking, I want to ask anybody that might be listening to podcast number 1 here on the Green Dream Stream with Pope. Yes, thank you. And we'll not be editing any of this, so it's going to be posted just as is. Going to shoot for just blabbing for an hour, and basically what's going on out here on the ground, logistically speaking, is there's no power here on the farm yet. We're working to get power. So in the evenings, I'm looking to fill my time with something productive to do. And I'm at the point where I'm just starting my radio station essentially here. Pope Radio on the Green Dream Stream coming at ya. And we had to get ya. Time for some action. What? Yeah, maybe I should have always done something like this because it's there's not a huge difference between what I'm saying to you and the thoughts that roll through my head on a regular basis. So all this really is about verbalizing things that I would like to think about, talk about. I'd love to talk with the world. I'd love to talk back and forth. I would love to bring on people that have questions or I have questions for them, and really, talk and grow this entire thing. And I'd want to talk about solutions, to talk about, any kind of like abundance-based thinking, right? And because abundance-based thinking to me seems like solutionary. And, when I was describing the fact that I was in finance, it was really to get to the heart of my understanding of capitalism and to explain to y'all, I am a capitalist first and foremost. And I understand, capitalism as the driving force in our lives and in our economy. The reason why I'm able to broadcast to you right now is for capitalism. So I don't hate capitalism. But what the problem with capitalism is that it gets to a certain point where it eats on itself, and capitalism becomes a problem. That's why capitalism has regulations. But the problem with regulations is that free market capitalism, the only form of capitalism that actually works, because regulated capitalism actually just it creates a hierarchy that allows people to create bureaucracies, and those bureaucracies allow to create hierarchies, and there ends up being a ruling class at that level, right? So free market capitalism ultimately isn't our entire solution, right? But that is my understanding of life and everything, and it is capitalism. So I'm not debating that capitalism is wrong. Please don't ever get that confused. But we're getting to the age of capitalism now where it's too old to work in our already existing system. Like, it doesn't work quite right. Now, I don't want to get away from how capitalism works. I want to switch it on its head. All right, so think about this. Basically, all that we're talking about with economics and the base concepts of capitalism is its supply versus demand dictates price. Okay, so what capitalism does, it rewards scarcity. All right, so if you have less of a thing and there is high demand for it, it demands a high price. What is wrong with this system? It can be rigged. One of the number one things I've ever learned over, in the age of information and waking up that I thought was so crazy when I first learned it, was learning that diamonds are actually not particularly all that rare. And that De Beers, started certain ad campaigns in the early 1900s, and they indicated that they were very rare. And then they always kept the supply down, so they manufactured the actual supply, made sure that it was never oversupplied, and this drove up the price of diamonds. Now think about how many people have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on diamonds, millions of dollars on diamonds, and they're not significantly rare in any sort of way. This is the problem, in my mind, as I see it, with a scarcity-driven situation. Now, I'm sure we can find problems with the other side of it, but what would be the other side of it? Have you ever thought about it? Has anyone ever thought about this ever? No. So what the other side of it would be, in my eyes, the way I see it, would be abundance-based, right? So if capitalism is scarcity is rewarded by higher price, in my version, we flip supply and demand on its head, and abundance is rewarded. So how do you do that? Well, it could sound tricky, but it's probably quite simple, right? So if you are able to create a surplus of the particular thing that you manufacture, then you essentially would be, how would it work? So I've never really had the chance to explain this far into it. This is actually the end road of the thought of basically how do you reward abundance. All right, so we all have taxes, right? And what you do is you incentivize that the more a company provides over abundance, the less that it pays in taxes. All right, so the more abundant, the more it produces, the less it costs them in taxes. And you essentially have a levy at that point. So this isn't a system that eliminates the concept of printing money and inflating currency, right? Which is a whole other debate that we should have. But essentially how the abundance rewards itself within the systemic structure is in reverse. Now, if you'll notice, like in capitalism, the way it works is you pay less taxes if you invest in the stock market. Your capital gains are going to be a lower tax bracket than actually earned income, right? And so we have to flip all of that on its head as well, right? And that is just the structure that we're in now of capitalism that rewards, scarcity by driving prices up. Now we're going to reward scarcity by driving costs down, right? So we're a society that rewards abundance, and the companies that are able to produce abundance have lower costs. And that is the structure that can get us there. Now, there are a couple ways that you can do this. I have a whole little map. Essentially, if you want to picture it like, a wheel with four little placements, what you would want to do is you'd want to start a business with an abundance-based, funding branch, something that you can make money off of. It can be education, a service. You can supply something. You could create food for people. Whatever that thing is, that's your funding branch. That's how you're going to supply capitalistically the growth of your entire platform, that is your company and the cooperative you create around it. Why do you create the cooperative? Because this eliminates a lot of the hierarchy that is in the bureaucracy of capitalism as it stands right now. So in order to divulge that capitalism, you take your funding branch, whatever, let's say we've got a permaculture farm here, we've got a big food forest, so let's say what we're going to do is we're going to sell fruits and veggies that are surplus to what we eat here on the farm. There's probably 35 different, revenue streams we could come up with for this particular farm. lapazfarm.com if you'd like to check it out. And but let's say that's what we're going to do. That's our funding branch. Now from there, we create nonprofit educational portals, right? And these nonprofits allow us to take in donations for contributions or for education services. As we're educating people, we're teaching about how we do our thing, which is abundance. This is open sourcing the information, teaching other people how to do it. When you teach other people how to do it, they're going to want to go out and create businesses on their own. So what you have is this other layer. After your nonprofit and after your funding branch, you create a cooperative. This cooperative is a structure where everybody that is in as part of the cooperative is actually the owner and the director of the cooperative as well. So there's bylaws in the cooperative, and the cooperative works out how it wants to structure and govern itself. But the point is that it's run by the people who own it, right? And this is when people start getting worried and start thinking there's some sort of other conversation being had. But you can go ahead and look into it. Two of our strongest financial firms in the world run off of cooperative structures or banks. One of them is Citadel, who was famously, at the heart of the AMC and GME squeeze play a few years back, and Vanguard. These are multi-billion, some say trillion, probably trillion for both of them, in terms of assets under management, companies that have a cooperative as a structure. So there's not the C word going around, or the social word, or the communism word is not what we're talking about here, people. We're still talking capitalism. All we're talking about is the fact that we're going to switch capitalism from a scarcity rewarded system to an abundance rewarded system. And that is a solution. It's a solution to our particular problems as they stand right now. And that feels pretty good. Like, it feels pretty good for podcast number one, getting that far in that conversation. What am I, like 23 minutes in? Oh my God, I'm going to do this for an hour. Oh, it's going to start getting real funny, people. Wait, go ahead and subscribe for sure to this podcast if you're listening, because this is going to get funnier and funnier as I have to fill an hour. And I've already talked about this. I don't know if you guys ever watched like Joe Rogan a bunch of times, but it gets to the point in his podcast where you've heard Joe like say this so many times, you're like, yeah, we know, Joe, we know. Well, kind of in a way, you're still the person that you are. So if you're sitting across the desk from somebody else and they're a new person, they don't necessarily know. They might not have watched that episode, so you have to repeat something you've said before on the podcast just to have the conversation with the person sitting next to you and filling them in. So I'll probably have to repeat myself a lot of times now that I realize it. So I guess I'll get used to that. Um, but what should we do here? You know, so we just get off topic when we feel like getting off topic and talk loosely, or should we just stay serious? Like, you know, should I just, you know, riff about how it feels to be walking around in the jungle right now, you know, in the middle of the night? Like, I'm sleeping on a mountain of beds here, people. Like, I haven't been indoors in 2 months now. I haven't had any indoors to be in, unless I go sit in our security bodega for a little while. That feels a little cramped. And I don't know, what does that feel like for a good for nothing from Boston? It feels pretty awesome. Feels pretty awesome, but it's not like I just showed up in Costa Rica yesterday, you know. I've got 11 years down here, so I've gotten pretty acclimated to the jungle. There are these tyras that came in and raided my kitchen the other day. And it's funny when so tyra is basically looks like a really large weasel. And they are fast. And they terrorized it at night. All I did was woke up to that. And it's the funniest thing, you know, like that might be back in the States, you know, that might be a raccoon or something like that. But when you wake up, it's like really hot. And a tyra is there, like running all over, trying to eat your eggs and steal your bag of salt. Like it's kind of hard to be mad at them because you're like, oh, you're so cool looking. I just want to stare at you while you rob everything from me. And that's what ends up happening. You know, it's like, it's, you know, this is your place. You know, I'm not really, you know, I'm an extranjero. I'm not really from here. So I guess, you know, you can have at it with my kitchen. And that's how it feels sometimes. You know, sometimes you hear these really big bugs that sound like, you know, helicopters, you know, flying around, and like little mini drones. That's what they sound like, flying around, and they're just zzz, and sometimes the zzz gets louder, and then sometimes it gets quieter, and as it gets the zoo gets louder. Sometimes I'll just duck my head under the blanket because I know it's looking for a landing. And sometimes it'll just land right on the blanket, and then it'll just sit there for a minute. I don't know, it's a heavy bug, whatever it is, but I don't feel like messing with it, so I just like let it sit there. Probably takes a crap on my head, right, and then bounces. Like, all right, I don't even want to mess with them, you know, because they're so big. They're so big. You don't want to get in a fight with one because it's like, I don't know, by the end of it, you just feel really bad. You're like, wow, I just killed like a dinosaur, you know. And you know, you don't want to kill anything here, you know, so just kind of let everything be. Let it come through. A huge ass praying mantis was zooming around. I wish I had a shot of that, you know. And it's like, I don't know, I'm still probably not really talking about my feelings about what it's like being here. I mean, so I don't have signal along with electricity, right? So there's no internet input. And as a web developer for many, many, many years, and a web designer, I've gotten very accustomed to being online, and very accustomed to the distractions. I've gotten to the point where I'll be listening to the distractions of the internet at the same time as I'm working. And so I've got good at the internet, and I have no internet. And it's hard to sometimes feel productive, but at the same time, you know, life is all happening out here right in front of you when you turn the internet off. And it seems like two different worlds at some point. So definitely that is hard. I think it seems very clear that of all the, you know, addictions that come from like typical society, I would have to say that money and electricity and then internet are probably the three largest ones, you know, probably even on a scale of food for certain people in terms of like addictive but necessary. And it's not easy to quit anything, you know. As I take a drag of my cigarette, knowing that, you know, I'll have to quit smoking pretty soon here. That's not something that can last forever either, at least not for me. And But, going through the changes, it's so strange because, once it gets dark here, and if you don't kick on a candle, you're just standing in the dark, especially if it's not like a full moon like it is tonight. And you feel like your life is shut off. It's so strange because you feel like your life is just been shut off and no one is thinking about you, knows where you're doing. You have no way to connect with anyone. And then when you do connect in, it seems so meaningless because you've been away from it. Whereas when you're in it, it's like every day you got to plug in and you start watching your podcasts and get into the conversations your podcasts are into. And you start like thinking about the world in this kind of globally way, like who's making these decisions, what's going on with Russia and China, and like what's this BRICS nation that's being built, what is the hegemony over, like what's going on, like, I don't know if you guys get into that, that's where I go. And but either way, we all get in our bubbles. The algorithm is bubbly no matter what. Wherever you go to consume your media, they're putting you in a tank, and you're only going to hear so much. So unless you jump from tank to tank and hear all the different bubbles, then you're only going to be getting like part of the story. And I think that's pretty much that's happening to everybody, because most people don't even have that much time to check in and see and keep an eye on what's going on in the world. I know before I got to this permaculture project and everything got shut off, I was pretty well tuned in to all the different conversations happening across the internet. And so talking about, stepping away from that, if you're wondering, like, it's so funny because as soon as you shut it all off, your mind zooms way much more into yourself, and it says, what about me? What about me versus what do people think about me? Where is anyone communicating with me? You start concerning yourself with yourself much more. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing in and of itself, but it does give you a little bit of insight as to what's happening when we just stare and constantly bounce back and forth, to our phones, which we all do, And of course, just not being able to do it shows you just how clearly, like, that's a really important thing for your mind to keep doing. And what it really is doing is it making us not really concern ourselves with ourselves and concern ourselves with what's going on with our lives. And that essentially leads to us not really that concerned with what we're making or what we're creating. And the more that you take in stuff that other people are creating, the less likely you are to create it, because you're like, oh, they've already created this. And the point of creation isn't to always create something that's totally original and unique. That's a goal. But, really to be a creator, what you always need to be doing is creating. That's the only thing that really gets us creators off. And, to fire off into that rocket ship to get to the best form of what we're trying to make and what we're trying to create. And so if we're sticking on our conversation of solutions-based thinking, and you are a creator out there, and I want to tell you, the moment that you do unplug and just shut it off for the day, maybe say you can't have any internet and shut off for a day or two, the moment that you get right through your writer's block, whatever kind of artistic block you might have, and you start concerning yourself with the responsibility of your creation, more than when everything's turned on, I would say. I'm going to fill up the water here as we tick into the second half of our podcast. Remember, we're coming. Is this live? It can't really be live if I'm just recording it. But I'm recording it right now, and I'm live. So, no, I guess it doesn't count. Live from the jungle. It's the Green Stream team. It's the Green Dream Stream with Michael Pope, your host. And we are breaking down, I'm just practicing here, where we are breaking down solutions-based thinking in this world that we know it in 2024. And we are just covering some solution-based thinking, some whys about that. And as we roll into our second half hour, we're going to talk more about what it feels like to, being without electricity and the internet. And we're just chatting about that. Now, this is like once I have a commercial or a sponsor, I'll have to like roll into the sponsor, And by the way, we do have a sponsor, and that is unityexpressions.com. That's UNITY expressions.com. And that is our merch store where you can find over 1,000 personally designed products, from clothes to bags to rugs to art and everything under the sun. It is our super mega fashion design store brought to you by me. And you can go over to unityexpressions.com anytime, take a look around, shop if you would like, and pick up one of my beautiful designs that you can wear around town just to be flashy and look dope. And trust me, those designs on there are some of the best designs I have ever created my whole life. So go ahead and check it out, unityexpressions.com. Now we're rolling back to the podcast. What's up, beautiful people? This is Pope, and I'm still practicing podcasting, and that was our sponsor. And microphone check, mama, microphone check. How does it feel waking up in the jungle at 2 a.m. with no power? And what do? Well, truth is not very much. And apparently you start a podcast. There's definitely, a lot of animal activity at night here. And have some kinkajou neighbors that go rustling around in the trees. I haven't heard them the past couple days. Anteaters rustling around at night. There's actually a lot more animal activity in the evening than it is during the day. And it makes a lot of sense because it is hot here. Very, very hot. And it's one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to getting electricity. One of the million reasons. But I can be grateful because it gives me a wonderful insight that I can include into this podcast to help y'all out there with what it might be like. What is it like? And, but I tell you what, it is electricity and the internet is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be able to learn everything. I mean, that's one of the things that I find like, all right, so once everything gets shut off and you start getting into your creative mind, start wanting to make stuff, you start wanting to go and use the internet to help you make it. That's how they get you. Right? Because I'll jump on and let ChatGPT write a bunch of stuff for me, and just like use that as the context for a particular web page or something like that, and this permaculture project in the future will probably be taking donations on particular projects that people might be interested in wanting to see and stuff like that. So I'll have, things to create, and then I'll want to use the internet to create it. And plus, like, ChatGPT is so freaking awesome, we're building a bamboo cabina here. And we were working on the tongue and groove floor. If you go over to the videos, you'll see updates, and that's mostly what our main focus is on right now. But I'm really looking forward to getting to the bamboo building part. And, oh, Christ, what was the point? What was the point, Michael? God damn, missing the point. Yeah, train of thought is going to be key. Maybe I'll outline some of this subject matter. So, what were we talking about here? So we're building the bamboo cabina. That's been the main focus for our building. And the point of that is, well, you can't go rewind your podcast in order to remember what you were thinking. So, like, You just really have to keep your train of thought, boy. Yeah, that's funny. And then now I'm really feeling the Bill Burr, the Bill Burr. I don't know if you guys ever listen to Bill Burr, but I do. And there's a very good, how are ya? There's a very good chance my podcast might start sounding, hey, how you doing? I'm just trying to check in with you on the Thursday, Monday morning podcast. um, all right, but yeah, what were we talking about? Shit. Da-da-da. Da-da-da, what it's like living there, building up the cabina. Oh man, this feels like a total podcast fail. So we're at minute 40, and it's like we're just like run dry because my mind went blank on a particular subject. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, all right, learning lesson there. If you don't keep your train of thought while you're explaining stuff in this, because I started looking around, right? I started like looking around, and that's when you get away from your train of thought and you just kind of like stream of consciousness talking like, oh, look, I'm looking at a tree and look, there's some bamboo laying on the ground. And yeah, we've got this bamboo cabina to build. But what was the point? The point was that there's other things to build as well, I think. Well, when in doubt, you go back to solutions-based thinking, right? Which is the subject of our podcast for tonight. So I'm talking about solutions to, yes, I remember our train of thought. We were talking about what it's like to use ChatGPT to to want to help, create and add to things. So the story really was that, I was a carpenter for many, many years. And, you have, typical things when you're building a roof for the cabina is you want to, figure out your slope so you know the distance to cut all of the poles, because all the poles will be a little different. We've got a 2-tiered roof that's going onto this cabina, and you have to calculate your rise over run. And I'm sitting there, and it's been years and years and years since I've counted rise over run, which is, basically you do a 3x12, a 4x12, or a 5x12, which means every 3, 4, or 5 units you move forward, or you go up versus how you go out. So your rise is 3, 4, or 5 units for every 12 units. So if there's 12 inches in a foot, then you're going up 3 inches, 4 inches, or 5 inches with every foot that you're going. That was a total reminder. And why was that a reminder? Because ChatGPT reminded me, because all I did was go up to my phone, hit the button and say, hey, ChatGPT, I got to calculate the rise over run. I've got a 6-meter long by 6-meter wide, and I want to have the slope 3x12. And it was super easy, actually. It's actually just, 2.5 meters, then 3 meters, then 3.5 meters for the 3 lengths for the poles. And ChatGPT broke down the angles for me. If you're going to cut that angle, it's going to be 75.98 or 76 degrees on the saw or on your angle in order to cut that, and so I think that's what's the other side of that. So 76, so then it's like 18 degrees or something like that. And that's awesome. You know what I mean? It's so awesome. Like, so when you had a lot of jobs and a lot of different things that you've done in your life, you don't always necessarily remember every little aspect of them, because you got to remember a lot of stuff. We can only remember so much. So me sitting there, I was like, well, I know how to calculate rise over run, but it's probably been 15 years or, something like that, 15 years since I had to do that. Yeah. And ChatGPT just did it for me, explained the whole thing. And like, I felt like I just had an entire like class at school happened to me within 5 seconds, and then I had the refresher and I was done. And that's why I was saying, like, it's getting to the point now where to be the best version of a creator as you want to be, you kind of need to have your AI model, language learning model with you, because you will be out created if you think about it that way, if you're not just creating for creation's sake, which is probably more what should be happening. But if you want to make the best version of your creation, you know, you certainly AI is going to help. I want to make the best cabina that I can, right? And I would have been thinking about that calculation and forgetting it, having to learn it, relearn it from some static website or something like that. Instead, you've got this tool, boom, shakalang. And you can tell what I mean by creating. It goes from anything. Dancers are creators. They create movement. Music is a creation, but also a building is creation, and builders are creators. In many, many ways, even the people who dig the holes. And so I think about creation in the full sense of just making stuff, just whatever it may be. So there's a lot of creators out there who make food, and a lot of moms out there who cook for 5 kids. They're creating every day, that's for sure. But staying on subject, for a change, and keeping it going, the idea that unplugging completely is going to be your best version of creation, it really, really, really depends on what you're trying to do and how far along you are. I'm sure there is a certain point where unplugging, because I'm not going to need ChatGPT to help remind me of the rise over run calculation. So most of this cabina will be built without AI sitting in my back pocket, coaching me through, rubbing my back every time a bug bites me or something like that. But it's certainly saved me a bunch of thinking and a bunch of time, just doing that. And I give people other examples of ways that you can use it. Like if we go to that mother, go back to that mother who's cooking for 5 babies, at her house every day. ChatGPT is this amazing tool that will let you say, all right, I want to have you plan out a meal plan that's going to be healthy and tasty for 5 kids every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All right, now I want that to be like portioned out so I know how many portions they should be getting. Their ages are this, this, and this. Their boys, their girls of this, this, and this. All right, great. Now I want you to come up with some really flavorful recipes for that. All right, I want you to have the portions then broken down. And now tell me how much food and what is my grocery list and how much do I have to buy at the grocery store. And it'll go ahead and add up all this much ground beef, this many celery, this many cucumber, 20 tomatoes, like whatever. It'll give you your full list, what you need to buy. And geez, in this modern age, you can really literally just pump that into probably some app and have it delivered to your house. And there you go. And you can, so everybody can use these tools to make their lives easier. And the people that will use these tools will be the ones that will take off and fly, and their lives will be easier. And their lives being easier, not having to do as much of that work themselves, will allow them to do more, more of their creating, more of their work. And those are the people who loosen up some of the ties with kind of like old burdens of learning and working that we used to have to do before we had AI and these tools that took up amount of time and energy. Like, we no longer have to do that. So the people who learn the quickest not to waste their time and energy on those aspects will have more time and energy to do all the other cool stuff they want to do. So that's why I think it's powerful. I think it's debatable. I don't know. Hit me up in the comments if you think AI is, if you think about it differently. Let me know. Do you think it's like the worst thing to happen to mankind, or do you think it's a great thing? One thing that we do know is that, inflation is built into our capitalist system, and deflation is And here's the thing about inflation. Inflation is great if you have assets, but it's not great if you are a wage earner, right? So living in if you work a 9 to 5 job and that's how you make your money, inflation's not really that great for you, right? But if you go and buy stocks, bonds, and real estate, inflation is great for you because it means you're always making more money. This is why the rich keep getting richer. It's literally built into the system. That's inflation. Disinflation just is less inflation. So people often call deflation what is actually disinflation, which is just less inflation, which when you look at over the past history of inflation, since it was built into our system, inflation never stops. So when we're talking about deflationary things, they're actually quite rare. It's mostly just disinflationary, but AI is the most deflationary thing that we've ever had. It actually turned out that the internet was quite disinflationary, but what the internet did was it actually globalized the world, right? So it didn't really deflate the world because we ended up globalizing our economic structure, which is this allowed us to export our inflationary currency in return for goods and services from the rest of the world. So it was like the internet allowed us to over and continue and hyperinflate, right? AI is probably the only thing in my lifetime that's actually truly been really deflationary for the economy. And I know this is the green dream stream, and here we are talking economics. Can you believe that? But it turns out that a lot of us, our permaculture people out here that are out here trying to find solutions and building them out in the concepts of abundance, we have a lot of reason to be out here. We learned a lot from the way the world works, and there's a big driving factor. There's a reason that I take these challenges and head on is because I believe in solutions, and I really, I could say this all inspirational, but the truth is I can't imagine living a life where I thought the problems of the world were way bigger than me ever having a chance to solve them. And that is actually the truth. All the problems in the world as I see them, are way too big for me to solve. I learned that truth a while ago, but I also can't live like that. I can't live that truth, right? Like call me stubborn, uh, stubborn old Irish Italian from Boston. But basically, in that stubbornness of not being able to sit and think that I can't have any positive effect on this world, me realizing that the only thing that I can do is to go do it myself, right? There is no talking about it. There's just being about it. And that's what I have really been doing with my life. And it gets you a lot of experience. I'm not saying it's probably the most financially affluent way to play this game of life, but it's certainly been rewarding in terms of experience. I'll tell you that. And if we are in fact just the product of our experiences, then I'm doing pretty dope so far. But still, if you're a creator and you want to create something that makes a difference in this world and has a positive, instead of just being one of those people who sits there and judges people from the sidelines on how they live their life and who they are, a judge, as a keyboard warrior on the internet, and that's all you're really doing with your life, then you're kind of missing out on your own personal experiences for the sake of someone else's experiences, and it's like, so sometimes solutions based thinking is actually really just the concept of just getting the most out of your every step in life, your every single today, getting the most experience from that. Because I don't think focusing on the problems of this world really helps you experience the world or experience. I think it prevents you from experiencing the world, and if you sit there like I was, this good for nothing in Boston, working as a handyman, and I'm learning about solar thermal hydrogen electric, and I'm learning about bamboo, and I'm like, oh, wow, well, where am I going to do that? It's pretty cold around here, and there's no bamboo growing. So first step was go to Costa Rica and learn Spanish, which I did. And, then I started a bamboo business called My Materiales Ambientales Ecológicos, and it was cool because My is the word for dude here in Costa Rica. So I always loved that branding. And I did that in 2017. We tried multiple different permaculture projects along the way. A lot of them have not gone, not continued, not grown the way that we're growing this one, naturally, organically from the ground up. You'll see some of the videos and earlier pictures. You'll see that where I'm at right now in this build was all just a big cow field before. And we're already I'm sleeping under our galerón, our big rancho roof, and we've got the bodega, we've got a frame out for a kitchen, we've got a shower, we've got our own potable water now, got a bathroom. We're almost done with the tongue and groove floor, and by next week we will be framing out the bamboo cabina that's going to live right on top. So I will have, after 11 years in Costa Rica, I will have had a chance to build my first cabina, my first house, which is always what I came down here to do. It's like I want to, earn my chance to build my own, natural building solution. And so what the tongue and groove is a reuse project, or reusing something that was taken down. So that's the green dream there with that particular material. And then the bamboo is treated bamboo. That's also being a reuse. Some of it's reuse, some of it's going to be freshly cured and dried and ready to go. We'll be scrubbing some poles and posting as much as we can about it. And I'm going to try to get into a nice little habit with these podcasts and get maybe about an hour recorded every night when I'm just kind of sitting here and kind of getting used to talking. And maybe one day, who knows, maybe it'll actually, get far enough that I'll be chilling with Rogan, talking nonsense about permacultures and solutions-based thinking to all the things that we want to do in this world, at least what I want to do, because, as you go along and you get far enough with trying to change the world based on your own solutions, you realize that there are certain people out there in the world that literally just think the opposite of you completely. And how you think the world should be is just the opposite of how they think the world should be. So it's like you really learn as you go with this process. There is no solution that's the right solution for mankind or for everybody. So it's really, you're just looking really for solutions for yourself, for things that make the world turn and make it make sense for yourself. And when you're trying to solve the world's problems, you're really just trying to solve a problem that you see inside yourself that bothers you. And maybe it bothers you because you see the world that way, but it's really not something that you have the potential to affect or to change. All you can really change is the way that you see it. And sometimes the way that you see it is by seeing yourself trying to solve it. And by doing that, you've solved that issue in yourself, that as it is in yourself. You don't solve the world's problem or that issue in the world, but you've solved that issue in yourself because you took the time to think of a solution that made sense, and you actually put your grind to it, and did something to make it happen. And so in this world, I gotta recommend with all of it that every time that I've ever done that in life, it's always been better than when I just sat back and judged somebody else for doing it. And so this is my call out to all y'all. If you got something that's a dream of yours, a green dream stream, you can consider me part of the team. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help you on your path. Put some comments in there, and any comments that I get, questions, anything like that, I will talk about them in the next podcast. That'll be a regular thing. So if you want to have a conversation with me, that's the best way for now. And remember to go over and check out unityexpressions.com. That's UNITY expression.com. And that's our merch store. And this is Michael Pope with the Green Dream Stream. And you've been listening to podcast number 1. Thanks, y'all beautiful people. Rock on.